after almost 2 years of keeping the yuan pegged to the dollar, signs now that more flexibility is on the way. Let's head over to the heart of this story and Beijing. And Stephen Engle is there. Stephen.
Good morning, Rish. Well, this may temporarily appease China's trading partners, especially ahead of the G20 meeting. But as Stephen Roach, Morgan Stanley's Asia chairman, says, this is not a panacea for the global trade imbalances. We also had Deutsche Bank's Ma Jun saying that over the long term, this move by the PBOC to return to the pre-crisis policies will be good long term to move China's economy from relying too much on exports to more of a consumption and domestic-led recovery. Of course, returning to this managed float of the currency as they had pre-July 2008 for the previous 3 years after that July 21st, 2005 revaluation. Basically, we saw a 21% increase in the yuan over that 3-year time frame. Since then, of course, being pegged to the dollar, it's been flat. Pressure, both internal and external, had been mounting for China to make a move on the yuan. The big unknowns had been when and by how much.
The whole world's on them, and they have domestic reason. They just have to time it for face.
The last time China made a significant move on the yuan was July 2005, right about here, when it made a one-off 2.1% appreciation against the dollar. But it wouldn't stay there for long, as the appreciation pressures were simply too great, and it basically became a one-way bet against the dollar, appreciating 21% over the next 3 years until July 2008. The financial crisis was in full swing. China had to protect its exporters. It applied the brakes to the yuan, and it has traded flat at 6.83 to the dollar ever since. Citing an improving domestic economy, the PBOC has now signaled an end to that 2-year peg to the dollar, returning to its pre-crisis exchange rate policies of more flexibility. But it ruled out a one-time revaluation, which begs the question, will a slow incremental increase in the RMB flood China with speculative inflows?
I think most important thing for the policymakers is to really make sure that the exchange rate goes back to the mechanism they have started, which is a flexible system, gradually reflecting increasingly market fundamentals and address some of the imbalances. That's more important than the short-term sort of fight with the hot money flows.
The issue for China is that they have to rebalance. And the way they're going to rebalance is they've got to reduce the amount of implicit subsidies that go to the investment sector and the manufacturing sector and give that back to the household sector.
Pettis says to rebalance, China's household consumption and therefore incomes must rise. And China, he says, has many tools to do that, including yuan appreciation, but also raising wages and/or interest rates. But getting the potion just right is not scientific, and each has its own risks.
Certainly, any of these things will cause increased pressure on profitability, increased probability of bankruptcy, increased non-performing loans. But not doing these things means that you don't rebalance.
With margins already squeezed, many Chinese exporters are looking inward to the growing China market, including local fabless chipmaker V-Micro.
Since we listed, our international sales has the percentage has declined from almost 90% to now about half. So that means we managed to create more products and more revenue based on our domestic market.
Which, let's face it, has 1.3 billion potential customers who the government would like to see spend a little more. And of course, Rich, the spillover effect here domestically will be the effect on the exporters. I've just spent the past week down in Guangdong province, a heavily export-dependent region. Of course, they're having labor strikes, labor unrest, rising minimum wage, salary increases, and now a possible specter of a yuan revaluation.